Good morning. Thank you very much for being here. We just ended our first and hopefully not our last meeting with Governor Evers, where we had an opportunity for both of our caucuses to sit down, listen to what he would like to focus on as he begins his four-year term, and listen to some of the ideas from our caucus. So we're happy to answer questions, but I want to first start by thanking Governor Evers for being there. One of the things that we talked about during the course of the campaign, and I think this is one area that I know there is definite agreement, is that just because you have divided government doesn't mean that nothing's going to get done. We have areas of common ground. I'm proud that Assembly Republicans, united last week, sent a letter to Governor Evers with lots of areas for us to focus on. Some of those hopefully will be easier than others, but all of them are important to make sure that we keep moving Wisconsin forward. So I want to thank Governor Evers for being there, and we can talk in specifics once I have an opportunity for Senator Bashir.
Yeah, it was good to have a joint caucus. I can't remember when the last time that happened with the Senate and the Assembly. But it was a good, it was kind of a good way to, I think, invite the governor in, ask him kind of a couple of questions here and there. Nothing got too specific, but again, I think it was the start of a dialogue that's hopefully going to serve us well moving forward, specifically when we get down to like brass tacks when it comes to the budget. So, yeah, I think it was well worth our time and effort, and yeah, look forward to your questions.
The governor says you all told him that Medicaid expansion was a non-starter, and he indicated that he's going to continue, he will propose that and will continue to fight for it. Can you give us your impression of how that conversation went?
Well, one of the things that I asked was I would prefer for us to find areas that are not going to automatically kind of devolve into a big argument. So I think what Wisconsin wants is for us to stick to our principles, which of course we will, but also to find common ground. So on things like a dramatic increase in income or sales taxes on business or homeowners, I think that'd be a non-starter with us. At least for our caucus, I think expanding government-run health care is a non-starter too. So my preference would be that we work off Governor Evers' budget, but make sure that if you have huge parts of it that are something that we fundamentally disagree with, it's going to make it an awful lot harder. So I think the request was, don't pick things that you know have no chance of passing just to score political points. And I think, you know, he has his beliefs, we have ours, but I think that's important for us to get that out there. So if we could have a budget that was focused on things we all agree on, like not raising taxes and not expanding government-run health care, I think those should be easy things to know. Republicans are probably never going to cave on those, so why would we want to start an argument there? So that was the focus. Now he said, look, he strongly believes in more people on government health care, and that he probably does want to raise some taxes. I certainly, hope we can convince him not to, but we'll see what happens.
Is it true that in your caucus, in the Senate caucus, it's also a non-starter, the Medicaid expansion?
I think it is when you're talking about the big number, and this goes back to, I think, right after the elections, we had some discussions about how waivers function and how they will function moving forward. I think if there's any area of Medicaid that we still have to kind of figure out exactly what the mechanics are, it's probably going to be in the area of waivers. I asked specifically about WEDC, and it sounded like, to me, the way I characterized it to the governor was to say it sounded like he had been moving away from his campaign pledge to undo the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation and instead allow it to remain in place. And he made the commitment that he would not touch WEDC in this budget. So I think that's a huge victory. I'm hoping, and I've been hearing that some Democrat legislators have been reaching out to him as well, saying that there's been good successes in their own backyard. And I tried to make the case to him as well that I think if you kind of surveyed the people in that caucus today, you'd find that there were a number of great successes where WEDC is concerned. So for me, anything that came out of that meeting today was the governor's commitment that he would leave WEDC alone. So.
Senator Fitzgerald, prior, Tony Evers has said he would put medicinal marijuana in the state budget. You have expressed that you have not seen the public interest in that, despite the referendum votes. Senator Fitzgerald, if it's in the budget, are you going to oppose medicinal marijuana?
Yeah, that would probably, I'm being reminded by the co-chair, that's probably a policy item. And probably in that process that we've developed over many budgets, that probably would not be part of the state budget. And I made those comments. I still don't believe the support's there within the Senate caucus to move in that direction, but I know the debate's going on nationwide, so.
About Foxconn, Evers today said he wants more transparency with WEDIC. I guess about the BAC, he wants more transparency with WEDIC, especially pertaining to Foxconn. Did he bring up those concerns to you specifically during his address? And are there areas of common ground that you could strike with him on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us want transparency, and I'll tell you, I think it was you, Senator Fitzgerald, who said there's probably not been an organization that has been audited or poked into more than WEDC over the course of the past 8 years. Don't forget that the audit that was done, those are done by the legislature, ordered by our colleagues. So of course, we want transparency just like Governor Evers does. So the idea of saying we want to make sure every single dollar that's given is earned, because don't forget, under the deal that we voted for, not a dollar goes out until a shovel's in the ground or someone actually gets a paycheck. That is something that all of us agree on. We want to make sure that the terms of that deal are kept. So if that's the goal for transparency, I think we're united in wanting that. If it is, I'll just take it at that. Let's hope that that's what the goal is to have that open-ended transparency where people live up to their commitments, and I think we have bipartisan support for that.
I want to go back to Medicaid expansion for a minute. Would you rule out accepting the expansion if it was part of a deal that would also raise rates for providers?
Yeah, so here's my position on Medicaid expansion. If you look at the states, as an example, Arkansas, okay? Arkansas decided to do Medicaid expansion. They basically paid people's insurance if they were at 20% or below. That was their Medicaid rate. We're already 100% of the poverty rate. So for individuals in Wisconsin, we found a unique way to make sure that if you are in poverty or below, you have access to Badger Care. If you are above poverty, you have the ability to get huge subsidies from the federal government under Obamacare. Why would we want to use state dollars to substitute ourselves in for federal money when we have so many other needs from everything from schools and roads and workforce development? So to me, the idea of raising rates is something that I think we should do, but it shouldn't rely on an expansion of government-run health care where we're just taking the time to be able to keep paying dramatically underneath the cost to deliver the care. That just undermines the private sector market. So I certainly think that we could look at expanding the rates that we pay, but I wouldn't do it by expanding Medicaid. That's just a non-starter for me.
Why do you say it adds in state dollars if the Fiscal Bureau has said it would free up $200-some million in GPR?
Sure, so if you think about it this way, every single person who's above 100% of poverty has the ability to get massive federal subsidies and go and buy private sector insurance. Every single person who has private sector insurance pays at least the cost to deliver the service and potentially more to be able to pay the doctors, the nurses, the folks who deliver the medical care. Every person that's on Badger Care is subsidized by somebody who's in the private insurance market. So the more people that we take from the private insurance market to put into the public market, the higher the rates are going to go for those people who have private sector insurance. So granted, there might be a short one-time savings for the state, but that is more than offset by the cost in the private sector for what they have to pay to subsidize those people who are already on Badger Care. So we don't want to make the situation worse. I believe the private sector solution that we came up with to make sure the exchanges are functional, we put in state dollars to do that, is the best possible answer because it allows the federal government to continue to have those exchanges where they have massive subsidies from the federal government, and it allows us to focus on people in poverty who really need the care.
What kind of boundaries are you setting on a 10% income tax reduction?
So that's Governor Evers' pledge, and that's why we wanted to talk about it. We've had some discussions. Now, don't forget, our caucus is still meeting, so we're still starting to talk about those. But remember, I want to look at the things that Governor Evers offered where we can find support. And I think trying to reduce income taxes is a worthy goal. I think a lot of things that are in there are worthy goals. I mean, Representative Steineke has his effort on homelessness. We have the HOPE legislation. I mean, there are a lot of good ideas that I think should know no partisan bounds. And I would hope that the promise that he made in the campaign to cut taxes for middle class would be more than just a promise.
If that's tied to reducing the scope of the man and ag credit, would that become a non-starter?
Well, yeah, we're not going to.
No, I mean, I think what we did and what I told my staff to do was to actually make sure that you're working within the parameters of what, Governor Evers was promising on the campaign trail, just to make sure that we're kind of on the same page. And that's what we've been doing so far. Whether or not that changes or expands or, I guess that'll have to be determined. But, I mean, that's the starting point. We know what Governor Evers promised, and we're going to explore that. So.
All right, thanks, everyone. We're going to
You
get back to talking.
talked about raising taxes to some degree. What did he say on raising taxes? Are you referring to manufacturing and tax credit or something?
So when I asked the question about whether or not we could agree that we would not raise taxes on income or sales, he said, well, it depends on how you define that. And I think most of us agree that taking away a credit, which makes somebody's taxes go up, is a tax increase. So I think we at least agree that that is a tax increase. So
Thanks,
hopefully we
Ron.
can do that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.